Welcome to Wisdom of the Elders with Ifetayo and Efunlayo on Awakening Airways. Welcome. It is with honor that we share insights from what we've learned in life through the system of Reiki and other traditions rooted in our ancestry.
As we all know, healing extends back to the origins of existence and is woven into the fabric of all creation. As elders, we've unlocked many of the wisdom keys, both practical and deeply spiritual, that we will share on this podcast to support the beautiful generations of healers that are now working their way towards eldership. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, my beautiful sister. And we're just so grateful to be here and have accepted the invitation of Yolanda Williams to sit together in this space and share from our life experiences as elders in our communities and in the Reiki community. We'll each introduce ourselves to you. Some of you know us, and some of you for the first time are meeting us. If you want to begin, my beautiful sister.
Hey, I will. Thank you so much. I am Efunlayo Maxey, and I reside in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I'm a Reiki practitioner and Reiki instructor. And I first met Yolanda a number of years ago, scrolling, looking for some Reiki podcasts, and there she was. And I was so excited to connect with her. And so have been following her for all these years and have had the pleasure of meeting her and being in her classes. And also want to say that Reiki has become so much a part of my life that it's doesn't there's no separation. I'm Reiki and Reiki is me. And I've taught many years of Reiki. I think I got my Reiki level 3 probably in 2007 or something like that. But for many years, I knew of Reiki, and Reiki was calling me, and I finally listened and stepped into the ring and was very much gifted with a very powerful teacher who set me on a good path of practice for my Reiki. And so over the years, I have taught classes for children, teens, and adults, which I really enjoy teaching. My background is in education, and also I specified in education generally with many people who have neurodiverse issues, special needs, we all have. But that's my background for many years. And then I retired from teaching in the public sector and now do teaching as well. I'm also a priestess in the Ifa tradition of spiritual African spirituality, and the Reiki just fits in there like a glove. It's just powerful and wonderful. And I also had the pleasure of meeting Ifetayo just recently, even though I had heard so much about her through Yolanda. And then here we are together today, and I'm just excited about this venture that we're beginning. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ia. Yes, this is Ifetayo White, and I am calling in and sitting in with you from my home in St. Helena Island, South Carolina. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., as is Yolanda, I found out. And I've been here in South Carolina since 2000. I was the first Reiki teacher in the Beaufort, South Carolina area. Beaufort County is where St. Helena sits, and we are an island off of the coast of Beaufort City, which is the coastal city here in southern South Carolina. As Ia, and I refer to my sister as Ia, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later because of my honoring her and her position as an elder in our communities. It is a title of respect. But so, at any rate, I am grateful to be sitting here with my sister. As she said a little earlier, Efunlayo, I am Reiki and Reiki is me. And I feel so in alignment with that statement. there's no separation for me of my life and Reiki. I every day am aware of my of the presence of Reiki in and through me and around me, and that my oneness with Reiki is boundless and limitless and cannot be separated. And this is how I teach my students. I've been teaching, I was initiated Reiki III in 1999 in Washington, D.C., just months before I moved to South Carolina. And as I said earlier, I've been teaching and practicing here for 25 years since that time. My practice continues to grow. Recently, I created Iyabo, which is a Reiki I certification for birth workers. Iyabo is Yoruba name for the mother returns, and I thought that was really appropriate for that particular level of certification. And as we speak, I am in the process of creating a Reiki I certification for end of life doulas, as I've been requested by many who were aware of my certification for birth workers. That request has come forward, and I will soon be able to offer a Reiki I certification specifically for those who have been certified as end of life doulas. And I am also in the process of publishing a Reiki anthology, of which our beautiful sister Efunlayo is a contributor, as well as Yolanda Williams, as well as 19 others. There are 21 of us altogether who share our Reiki origin stories in this anthology, which is named Reiki Heart and Soul, Many Stories, One Bright Light. So I suspect that the book launch, which will happen in Washington, D.C., should take place by the end of the summer or early fall. And then I will be traveling around to where the contributors live to have book signings. So I say thank you for being invited into this space and open up this conversation with my sister here. We are both elders in our lives, in our families, in our respective home communities. Ia lives in Florida. I'm in South Carolina. So it's interesting that we're both nestled in the South. I don't know. I just thought of that for some reason. There's a very nurturing energy here, I find, anyhow. So, what about you? Yeah, I don't know. That just came to me.
There is, and
Yeah.
I'm originally from Ohio and have lived
Yes.
for other states as well, but my origins are in Ohio. I've been in South
Yeah.
Florida for 20 plus years, but I had never thought of it that way until you mentioned it. But
Yeah.
I do find that to be true because as I move in and about the community, people will refer to me as mama or mom or ma'am.
Yes.
And it always rings in me that, that truth that I am that
Yeah.
and people tend to be thinking back on life, tend to be more concerned, caring.
Yes. Yes.
They'll assist and help as they see that I might need or give me preference.
Yes.
Yeah, that is true. I know it to be true, but I hadn't thought of it the way you stated it, and it is, yeah. There's
This was a new thought for me as I'm sitting here with you, actually. I just, I recognized that we were both living in the deeper South. And there is that honors elders
yes.
that I find here. I'm also referred to as Mama Ifetayo throughout my community. And that began here. I've been here for 25 years. So I moved deeper into my elderhood. While living here.
Mhm.
But even in my 60s, I think I'm 80 now. So 20 years ago, 25, I was often called Mama Ife Tayo, particularly from my students who lived in the South. Not necessarily those in the North, but I was younger and now I'm older, and more people do call me either Iya which I said earlier, we both refer to ourselves as Ia,
Yeah.
um, which is yeah.
And one of the things I want to mention here is living in South Florida, there are so many people from different countries here.
Yes.
It's like the United Nations down
Yes.
here. And when one of the things I noticed when I first moved here is when you have that mix of people from literally all over the world and you're hearing their languages all the time, it reminds you that you live in this community of the world.
Yes.
And so many people that come from other countries have that reverence for elders
Yes.
that in some pockets of the US have been lost.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
that's another reason that acknowledging of elders is more prevalent here specifically
Yes.
than maybe some other places that I may have traveled. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it's something I hadn't really consciously thought about, even though in my own spirit I recognize it when it's happening. But it is important to pay attention to that. Absolutely. And speaking of that, I was raised during a time when eldership was honored
Yes. Yes.
and that children were to be seen and not heard. And
Yes.
so you learned how to stay in your realm. You
Yeah.
may be listening or not to what's going on, but you did not enter into adult conversation
Yes.
without an invitation, and you were taught high respect of your elders in all manners and all walks of life. And living in the time that I grew up, I was fortunate to live in a community where most of our family elders were living in the same community because
Yes.
I grew up when we were still segregated. It was a
Same.
beautiful time. And
Yes.
so you had a lot, and then the people in your block and in your particular neighborhood, everybody knew everybody. So it was a sense of community from that perspective as well. So the lady down the street was just as much your mama as your auntie and your mama,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you had to give them the same respect
Yes.
according to the way that we were raised. And you don't always see that so much as we've gotten so called more modern and integrated. But that element I see is very much a part of the communities that you see from different cultures more. And the other thing I noticed that since, we're talking about the title of Iya,
Yes.
um, in our spiritual practices, you see that reverence for elders is very much a part of the protocol.
Yes.
Very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't even imagine in our spiritual and cultural communities not referring to an elder who has wisdom in any other way than with those words of respect.
Absolutely.
And there's vibration to everything. We know we live in a vibrational, energetic world. It's real. Energy's real, vibration's real. So when we are named or called by or referred to by those names of honor, then there is an energy
Mhm.
exchange that is very palpable to
Very.
me. We can feel it.
Yes.
And it's really a beautiful thing. And I think that it's something for all to consider, all
Definitely.
folks who have not embraced this particular way. It's
Yeah.
something to really consider.
And it
And
has a great impact on
yes.
your behavior, your interactions. So when
Yes.
someone refers to
Yes.
you by a
Yes.
title of eldership honor, whether it's mama
Yes.
or
Yes.
OB or whatever it might be,
Yes.
you remember, "Oh, that's me," you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it gives you this thing of, "Okay, I need to play my role to
Yes.
to be
Yes.
honored is to also acknowledge that
Yes.
that's who I am. I am an elder in this situation, in this
Yes.
circumstance, and it also eldership gives continuity to the
Yes.
community. And so when we're
Yes.
talking about our Reiki communities, as a Reiki instructor,
Yes.
as a Reiki elder, but as a elder just in your humanity,
Yes.
all of that together gives you a sense of belonging
Mm,
It gives you a sense of understanding the role that you play to set an example.
yes, absolutely,
Set an example.
absolutely. To set an example and to I love that. That just resonates with me so much. That is the role that I feel is the strongest in sitting in the place of elderhood. In so many of our traditions, if we think of the all the indigenous cultures, where that elder set the standard, set the example. Everyone looked to that person for how to behave and what to do. I know for Ia and myself, in the way that we walk and the way that we feel so one with Reiki, that is how we present ourselves and as we walk in the community and as we teach, as we are with clients and students and others, there it is, I don't want to say innate, but it came along with the growing into being elders. And I really appreciate you saying that. I also there's a piece about life experience that I just wanna use those words because we were chatting the other day, Ia and myself, and I reflect back on when I have taught elders who have Reiki 1, level 1, who've come to me for Reiki 1 instruction, and the way that I feel towards that person and the energy that is present for me with that person. They might not have practiced Reiki before, may not have been attuned before, but they come to me with so much life experience that
Yes.
I honor that in the way that I welcome them, in the way that I sit with them. They might not be as old as I, but they are still elders in wherever they are chronologically, where we can feel and witness that they come with life experience. So
Mhm.
even in that way,
Totally agree. Totally
and
agree.
yes,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
difference. There
There's
really
there's different types or categories of eldership.
yes,
Oh, so like you're saying, the person may be younger than you chronologically.
yes.
Because they have lived a period of time, you acknowledge that wisdom. There's an old saying that I remember hearing most of my life where you don't get old being a fool.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Yeah,
that may
yeah,
not be totally true, but that the sentiment is that you being able to stay alive
yes,
counts for
yes,
something,
yes.
it counts for something. But I learned a great lesson when I was very young in my professional life. I became a supervisor when I was 25 years old.
Mhm.
And when it was first offered to me, I was like, "Me?
Yes.
What? Whatever." And what I found out was that the administrators had been watching me for a year,
Yes.
and they wanted this new program developed, and they asked me if I would do it. And I'm like, you know how they say, what are
Yeah.
you talking about, Willis? You know? And it was scary and challenging and thrilling and all of that at the same time. And but here's what was the lesson that I didn't know that I was being taught at the time is that many of the staff that I was to supervise were much older than me
Yes.
chronologically and
Yes.
had many more years of teaching than I had. But what my immediate supervisor in my current position when that was offered to me, when I went to her to get her wisdom, and it was interesting, this woman who was my supervisor happened I knew her from growing up. She was
Yes.
connected to me as in my family. She was my Brownie and Girl Scout leader.
Oh, yes.
So I knew her and trusted her. So I said, "Fran, how could they think that I could do it?" She says, "Do you know what your topic, you know your teaching, you know your skills?" And so I do. And I studied a lot and always was the first one signing up for workshops and everything. She said, "So you just do what you know. That's why they've chosen you and you'll be fine." And so I knew I had to earn the respect of those
Yes.
who had
Well,
I was going to
yes.
supervise. And it took a while, but I did. In fact, I'll never forget the day that one of the older teachers said to me, I had to go in and substitute with her because they were co-teaching and the teacher was out. We couldn't find a substitute. I had to go in the classroom and sub with her. And at the end of the day, she said, "So you do know what you're doing."
Yes.
And so I realized I made it. But in that instant, I learned later, looking back, I had crossed over from being this young girl, she can't possibly know what she's doing, to
Yes.
someone who they respected as a leader. And
Yes.
so I liken leadership to eldership in a sense.
Yes, absolutely. As
So
yes.
that was a lesson that I learned early on because in a lot of the circles that I participated in as a young person, I was a lot of times the youngest person in the groupings. So I
Yes.
had to get real with myself in terms of this is just my path. So I need
Mhm.
to embrace it
Mm.
instead of shrinking in it. But to me, eldership is years of life. It's what you study and the level of understanding you have of what you study. And then as someone who is sharing that, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that's a way of looking at eldership in a different perspective. Does that make
Yes,
I had to
absolutely.
learn that. I had to
And
learn that. Yeah.
as you're talking, I'm thinking about initiations. I'm thinking about initiation, and I'm thinking about levels such as Reiki, where we have 3 levels in the Usui system and others. And I I'm thinking as you're speaking, about, even with if someone comes at level 1 and the devotion, okay, so similar to what you had when you moved into that position at a young age, into that position of leadership, and then was recognized by the elders because you devoted yourself to the practice of the work you were doing so that you were able to move through that level of initiation, that step, and to be seen and recognized and as worthy. And so for me, it can happen in that same way with Reiki. We
Yes.
have students who come in and everyone comes in at each level with their own consciousness of how devoted they will be and how we will recognize each one of them in our own way as they are moving forward. We
Yes.
will recognize at each level the the competency, the devotion, the practice. We will see that and then we will recognize that. So
Absolutely.
someone can come in at level 1 and stay there forever because that's their devotion. That's where they know themselves. And I will honor them. I will honor them for their capacity to grow and be present and shine where they are. And so I hope I am explaining
Yes.
what I'm feeling from what you shared and the similarities of
Yes.
how I experience life and experience Reiki and experience the levels of Reiki and the proficiencies and the initiations because I feel that each all of what the example you gave even at that time in your life was an initiation. We have all these life initiations that happen all the time for us to grow through and for
Abs
us to be recognized by the elders or the teachers or the supervisors at the end of that at some point. And so I just love the parallel of
Yes.
of
Yes.
life this way.
Powerful. It's powerful. And I think it helps us to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I love the way you were talking about it in terms of how people come into Reiki classes at different levels, because it helps us also to recognize our own life experience and value,
Yes. Yes.
as opposed to you come in, you don't know anything. No, we all know
Right.
something,
Yes.
and we all
Yes.
know that there's a calling to Reiki.
Yes. Yeah.
There are people that I know you have seen in your classes, they just wanna they just like taking classes. They wanna come in.
Right.
They just wanna
Yes.
know, "What about this? What about that? Okay, so now I finished level 1, now can I take level 2? Hold up, what's the rush?" It's
Yes.
not like in our Western formal education system, you check off the list. Yes, you did that, now you can move on to the next thing.
Yes.
And even though it has become that, I know when I first started Reiki training, you didn't just go boom through
Mm.
levels. There was
Yes.
time to understand, to bask in it, and
Yes.
get all up in the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that was my experience. And
Yes.
during the time after each level, I had so many assignments that
Yeah.
it recommended for me to do
Okay.
for my instructor, and
Yeah.
it was powerful because I got to learn what was Reiki and
Yes.
how was my Reiki
Yes.
versus somebody else's
It's
Reiki,
yes.
and it was just I didn't know any other way until
Mhm.
later. I just thought everybody taught like that.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
found later that everybody didn't teach like that,
Yeah.
but that was the way she was taught, so she taught me that.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
it's like, "Okay, you finished that, now you can next week you can do this and this." But I've seen how that has shifted over time, which is okay because everything evolves. But at the same time, when you think about how we're talking this conversation about the importance of honoring and recognizing eldership, you are able to build that concept within yourself when you take your time.
Yes. Absolutely.
Take your time. And
We
then you can appreciate it. Because I have also another perspective I'd like to share here that I think might
yes.
is that you take, our Western education system and then you take whatever else we may be doing. And I also went to school, post high school, I went to college and got my master's degree and all that I did in early years. And I remember on my first job understanding like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing." Well, just because you got this piece of paper
Yes.
that says you earned this degree and you went through your practicum and you went through your student teaching or your internship or whatever it is, and then there you are, and you realize, "Wow, this is different. I don't have anybody at my shoulder telling me what to do." You
Yes.
have to decide you're going to stand on your own 2 feet and you're going to roll up your sleeves and you're going to get in there. And that's what builds your wisdom and your confidence and your proficiency at what you do, which leads to eldership.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I think that with our way life is today, everything moves so fast that Reiki is one of those places where I like to advise my students, slow down. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
It'll become richer. It's just you age wine or
Yes.
take your time with it.
Yes.
And a lot of people listen, say, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." And then others, they don't, and that's okay. Everybody has their process
Yes.
that they need to go through and follow. So that's one of those things I've learned to recognize everybody is on their own path at their own pace. But I think that just you said you were 80 years old. I'm 76 years old. 76 and a half, according to
Yes.
kids
76 and a half.
calendar.
That counts.
Um,
Sorry. Yeah.
It's one of those things you to cherish your experiences, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
That's the real stuff of life, is paying attention to what's happening in and around you as you move through your life, and that's where that whole definition of what wisdom is. You can have the knowledge, but
Yes.
without the experience, you don't get to wisdom.
That's it. I love that. I love that. I love that wisdom and teaching. This is so rich for me to and every
Good.
time we sit in conversation, it turns into this, and I just love it, where we're feeding each other and hopefully through this podcast, feeding others. What you were saying, I was reflecting again, but and thinking in terms of my own Reiki experiences and lineages. Gratefully, I learned about Reiki in the 80s in DC. My friends were becoming Reiki, and I'm talking about African American community of friends and practitioners who were becoming Reiki practitioners and teachers in the 80s in the Usui tradition. And at that time, my beautiful teachers shared the wisdom with me, and then there was not much contact after that. I was pretty much on my own in my practice and in continuing to learn. It was just because of how life was for them and me at that time. So I am very motivated self-learner. So for me, it that I continue my growth because I have that motivation. Not everyone does, but I do. And as my sisters had said earlier, in her experience, I was not seeking Reiki initially. Reiki found me. I knew of Reiki. I was receiving Reiki treatments, but I wasn't being called. I didn't hear a call to Reiki as a practitioner initially, and I was offered a gift of Reiki attunement for my 50th birthday in '95. So it was pretty much 10 years after my friends were becoming Reiki that I surrendered and to the gift of Reiki attunement. I was receiving it as a gift because I still wasn't feeling called to practice. And then I was again gifted in '99, 4 years later, to be attuned Reiki III by one of the students of my first teacher. And I was a practicing massage therapist and herbalist and all the things, acupressurist and reflexology and all of those. But, then it wasn't until I moved here to South Carolina and was asked to teach by some of the massage therapists. I was practicing massage when I moved here in 2000, and some of the massage therapists here knew of Reiki, so they asked about receiving and also being taught, and that was the beginning of my blossoming into the Reiki teacher that I never had planned to be in the beginning. I never thought I would teach. I didn't plan to teach. Reiki has its way with you, as I tell every my student. Reiki has its way with you, and it will always be beautiful. It will always be beautiful. Um, and then and fast forward and to the point that I want to make that is in alignment to the point that you were making, eh, in 2017 I had a yearning for a deeper understanding and knowledge and practice of Reiki. I had no clue where it would come from because at that time I hadn't been introduced. There was not so much online activity and I had not been introduced to other Reiki teachers. I didn't know where to look. And so I just continued to practice, and one of my students introduced me to a book in 2017, The Inner Heart of Reiki, which Yolanda will always refer to also, written by Frans Steine, who is a Reiki teacher in Holland and the Netherlands. And that book brought me into the space of a deeper connection with Reiki that I have been yearning for, more knowing of the history, more knowing of what Reiki really is, and not just a hands on practice, but the depth of Reiki and this oneness with who we are in our true selves and in our human selves. It was from that point I met Franz in 2018 at an International Reiki conference in Omega in New York. And in 2020, he came to my home and taught Shinpiden Reiki III. And so since that time, Franz has been for me, and I'm mentioning this right now because he is a 50-year-old person. He's late 50s. I think he's 59. So excuse me, Franz, if I don't have that. I know he's 58, 59. He's not 60. But he holds for me the space of an elder based on what you just shared, Ia. Franz is devoted to his practice. he is visible in the world. You can find him on Facebook. You can find him everywhere. YouTube. He teaches nonstop to any of us who are interested in tuning in. He will feed you Reiki. He will feed you knowledge of Reiki. He will support your practice in Reiki, even though he doesn't even live here. And to me, that speaks of elderhood. That speaks of someone to be honored as a Reiki master, a Reiki teacher, a Reiki elder, even in his youth. I am I'm grateful that he is in my life and that I can at any time tune in through a book, one of his books, through YouTube, through Facebook, Instagram, wherever I can find him, and I will hear from him some words of wisdom from the elders of the Reiki practice. And and that truth is always one with the truth of my cultural spiritual practices of Ifa and others. There's always that, and that's what I'm always looking for, is where that truth intersects. So for me, that's important. It has to be an intersection. So I just want to bring that into the space of it doesn't it doesn't necessarily have to, and it can be age, elderhood, where you've had a lot of life experiences, or it could be a devotion to your practice and your way and your integrity that have made you an elder in your community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement with that. And in the same vein, I look at Yolanda as my sensei
Yes. Yes.
because although she's a young woman, when I first started following her, the richness of her work
Yes.
was very palpable to me.
Yes.
And she has devoted her life to
Yes.
this way of
Yes.
energy healing in all different forms and specifically with Reiki.
Yes.
And it's a matter of, I think we didn't know this conversation was gonna go in this way of the different aspects of eldership, but at
Yes.
the same time, there it is, because Yolanda's idea for this type of podcast was the wisdom of elders, and so as we explore the bigger picture of what eldership is,
Yes.
to acknowledge it in its different forms, because at the same time, when you look at different cultural spiritual practices, many of the wisdom holders started on their path when they were very young.
Yes. That's
Because that was their mission,
yes.
it was their destiny to come in this incarnation
Yes.
to impart knowledge that had been gathered from different lifetimes for
Yes.
them. And so in their physical manifestation as a person of youth, but their
Mhm.
consciousness, their
Yes.
spirit holds the eldership. Because
Exactly.
that's where the energy of wisdom that they bring, and I think that's so important. A very interesting thing happened a couple of years ago with one of my spiritual teachers had a call from someone who wanted some counseling, spiritual counseling, and when she reached out to her, they were talking how she works and this, that, and the other, and then this young woman said to her, "You're too old. I really want to consult with a young person who will
Oh,
understand me." And it
uh,
what
yes.
how it was just, like, perplexing. W Why would you want th that's go to your girlfriend,
Yeah, yeah,
your
exactly.
sister.
That's right.
But when
That's
you
right.
are in a place in your life where you really need to connect with yourself for what is your life path and those kind of things, give me a elder.
Just thank you.
Give me an
Thank you.
elder. Not
Thank
that
you.
the description I just used of there are people who play the role of very wise souls that come back in young bodies. I'm not
Yes.
discounting that, but in
Yes.
that particular stance, you want somebody who has that element one way or both ways.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so it was very it's like, wow, this person is not even hearing what they're saying.
Yes. No, they're not.
They're not even
Absolutely.
hearing what they're saying. So it was such an amazing conversation to hear what the young person was seeking, and then the statement was, "You're too old, I want a young person to
Yes.
advise me." Not that young people can't advise, I'm hoping people are clear on what I'm saying with that, but that acknowledgement. So when you find that young person that can advise, that's a gift.
That
And
is a
so
total
as you mentioned, Frans Steine and
yeah, Yolanda.
Rhonda, that's that gift of where that person came back with that destiny as
Yeah,
opposed to just a random individual. Because
absolutely.
there are a lot of people who are elderly who don't have that kind of wisdom to give
That's
because
right.
that's not their life's mission.
That is not their life's
But
mission.
yet they teach by the life they live, and you can learn from it.
Absolutely. I believe that the accumulation of wisdom, the experiences of life, and the experiences on a particular path, the experiences of life in general, there's an accumulation of wisdom having to gone through so many different experiences. So even those elderly folks who are in your family, are in your community, they have had experiences that you might garner wisdom from. There have been ups and downs, in and outs that they could possibly share with you kernels of wisdom. Some of us were destined, I want to say it that way, to
Yeah.
be on these paths of eldership, of teachers. I remember my mother, and I wrote this in, I think it was in the book, my story. My mother would always say to me when I was a little girl, "You're going to be a teacher. You're going to do this and you're going to do that and you're going to be a teacher." And I kept thinking, I'm not going to teach. That's not what I want to do. In every situation in my life, I ended up being the teacher. And even with girlfriends, they were always looking to me,
You. Yes.
yeah, with their problems, with their and also that leadership part. I was generally older. I started school because my birthday's in March. I was usually like the oldest in the class, but I was always looked to as the leader of the class. And there was just something in me that people were drawn to that spoke of some level of wisdom, even how that young and wisdom. But I eventually, it became clear to me that there was an element in me. I was always going within. I was always there was something in me to say, to go within, to listen, go within to listen. And that was a guiding force for me in my life. And I'm sure that in my response to my Reiki teacher who offered me Reiki, initially as a Reiki attunement, and I said to her, "Let me meditate on this first before I say yes," because I had not been seeking, but I did. I went within and I did hear, I received the message, received the gift, and
Yeah.
I acted on that. So I think that was probably, it was palpable to those people in my life that they could trust to the extent of my life experience of the wisdom that I might be able to share with them at that time.
Yes.
Um, but I feel totally vested at this moment in my eldership and in my wisdom. I feel vested.
I
Don't
I
you?
do, I do,
Yeah.
and it's something that you grow into.
Yes.
You grow into it, and depending on your life experiences, it can be easy or it can be a little more challenging. I know
Yes.
for me, even though I'm comfortable in it for the most part in my circles, my challenge has been sharing in a bigger sense.
Yes.
And that's just because of my personality and
Yes.
my own insecurities and things like that. But within my own self, within my family, and in my circle of friends, I'm
Yeah.
fine. and
Yes.
just that the other part of it. And even with all of my experience in my professional life as being out there,
Yes.
as a leader and being moving into that whole realm of being an administrator, going out representing the agency and all that kind of stuff, it had to grow on me to be comfortable in those circles. What
Yes.
I didn't realize at the time that I came into later was that was my destiny to do that. But
Yes.
I never saw, how some people have a vision of where they're going?
Yes.
I didn't have.
Yes.
I was being led there,
Yeah.
but I didn't have the bigger vision.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times in Reiki that because Reiki opens you up to so much more
Mm.
of life force energy, and if you nurture that connection, it will show you. And based on what your specific frequency is, either you will be led or you will have the vision and move into it because
Yes.
part of what Reiki does for you, it does for you whatever it is that you need.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
whoever you think you are, Reiki will confirm that or say, yes, but let's do this up
Yes.
here. Let's go in
Yes.
this direction or whatever.
Yes.
And so what that means to me is like sitting here on this podcast, I would have never seen myself doing this, but at the same time, I was doing it just in a different way.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of wrapping my head around, you want me to do a podcast? What? You know, but you're already a teacher, so
Yes.
what's the difference? It's just the mechanics of the medium for which
Yes.
you're doing it. And so to me, that's that part where I said in the beginning that Reiki in me has opened me up to so many things that I may have never done because the Reiki just brings it out.
Yeah.
And if I don't get it, the Reiki will bring somebody to me to bring it out.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. And Yolanda has been that conduit
Yeah.
for many of us. And I can't remember if she was the first Reiki podcast that I was interviewed for, or Natalie Jasper, who is also has dived into Reiki podcast, one of the two. And they're sisters also. We're all under Franz's lineage, and I've met both of them because of that. But that conduit that Yolanda has been particularly for me, I think I've been a little more out there than you probably because I have that personality also. You see this yellow and all that. And I don't know. Not that I was looking for that. I'm really an introvert very much. And I am a solitude and being alone. I could thrive. But I know my spirit told me a long time ago that I remember being a nun in another lifetime or monk, but this was not that lifetime. So that I had to get over it. And I took that to heart. I said,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, here we go."
Yeah.
So I've been open to the growing, and because I guess and also I'm from DC. I taught my first Reiki class in DC, actually, and so my teaching has been pretty, vast in that I've not only have taught here where I live, but I've taught in many cities from Vermont down to Georgia, probably like that. And I've had students come to me because I have the International School of Reiki. I'm sorry, the Lowcountry School of Reiki at Nisa's home, and Nisa is the name of my home here on St. Helena Island, and Nisa is the name that my grandchildren call me from our Native American tradition. But so I've taught pretty broadly. And so it just felt, I don't know how many years ago it's been with Yolanda, 5 maybe, I don't know. It felt natural to to extend my being known or introduction of me internationally, because Yolanda invited me to be a part of the Reiki broadcast that was an international broadcast. This is just the continuation at 80. I don't know where the end is. I don't know.
That's great.
And I will just continue as I do every day to be asked to be used, asked to be a vehicle for love, number one, and for wisdom, for the wisdom as a teacher, and to continue to walk in the truth of who I am and be vibrationally Reiki in the world.
Yeah.
Be vibrationally Reiki in the world, whether I'm teaching or hands-on or whatever, that I show up energy. And as we said earlier, as an elder, to show the way by example, be a demonstration. That's why I always tell my students, be a demonstration.
Demonstration. Because you
Be
are anyway, so do it consciously.
do a conscious you are anyway. You're
Yeah.
gonna be a demonstration. Yes,
So
and make a
do it
choice.
consciously, and then
And
you don't have to say, "Oh, wow, oops." It's
exactly.
conscious and intentional.
Intentional.
And we owe it to ourselves to do that way, and we owe it to the community because you
Yes,
never know
yes,
who is watching you.
that's right.
You never know who is witnessing your life,
Yes,
and you owe it to yourself and to the community, to the world, to live a conscious life. And for me,
yes,
that's one of those things that Reiki helped me to embrace
yes,
so that when I do my Reiki, when I wake in the morning, it sets the stage for my energy to
yes,
be what I need for that day
yes,
so that I can connect and intuit with the way that spirit is having me
yes,
move. And that to me is that aspect of Reiki that is most powerful and spiritual and sustaining for me. And that's why I can't do anything without acknowledging my Reiki.
right.
Because on the
Absolutely.
days early on when I would sometimes be moving too fast or forget or whatever, I'm like, wait, something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get my plug in
Yes.
today. I need my boost. So
Isn't it's the truth though. It's the
yeah, you
truth.
miss it
It's
because
the truth.
it's so I've learned so many different ways, and I try to share this in my classes of ways to make you
Yes.
connect. So it's not
It's
always, oh, I get to sit down
no,
and do all. No,
no.
it's in you and it's all around you. Just
Absolutely.
make that intention to connect with it in the moment.
And see, we've never taught together, we've never even talked about it, but this is exactly my way
Yeah,
to with my students is to make it, I say, as simple as possible, as simple as your breath. We can be in Reiki, practice Reiki, connect with Reiki in the moments in so many
exactly.
different ways, and
And throughout the day, even if you did a whole
throughout
hour of
that's
self-Reiki,
what I
during the
throughout the
day,
day,
you need to plug in again or do something,
throughout the
whatever.
day.
Yeah. So I think that this is so magical that we've only known each other for a
Yeah.
short time and
Yes.
we've connected so genuinely in our
Yes.
meeting. And then
Yes.
Yolanda, in fact,
Yes.
she's the one that said, "You have to meet,
Yes.
you have to meet."
And
And so
same
she
here.
saw that, and I'm
Yes.
just so glad that
Yeah.
she saw that and we had a chance to meet. So I think that been watching our time. So I
Yes.
think that, I'm pretty sure we've done an hour because I forgot to check the time when we
That's
started.
all right. Yeah, it's been an hour, but I wanna make one more statement
Oh, yeah,
before we
sure.
go because it's something you just said again just brought to mind in the in being a demonstration, and the 2 of us as elders sitting here as elders in the Reiki community, in the Reiki world, to represent Reiki. Well, we are Reiki teachers, Reiki instructors, Reiki practitioners. So how we show up in our worlds as a demonstration of those of who we are in that way, I feel is a beautiful it's beautiful. We are doing this consciously, and I invite all of the Reiki practitioners and teachers to take this in. How are you showing up as Reiki in the world? What are you demonstrating as Reiki in the world? When you share with someone, I'm Reiki, or I'm a Reiki practitioner, how what in what way do you show up as a demonstration of that so that what people take away with them is an honoring of the Reiki tradition and practice as
Gotcha.
opposed to some other thoughts and feelings about what Reiki might be? So I just wanted to leave that there as an invitation to everyone who's watching us, watching this broadcast, and sitting with us at this time.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sitting
Yeah.
with me, Ia.
Ah, thank you so
And
much, Ian.
so we hope this
Yeah.
has been useful, helpful, inspiring
Yes.
for you as we call ourselves I think Yolanda gave us the name of Wisdom of the Elders.
Yes.
So until we meet again,
Until we meet again. And this has been delightful and beautiful. Thank you so much.
you're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.